One of the aspects of religion I find to be most fascinating is religious asceticism. Why does being religious motivate things like self-denial and mortification of the flesh? William James, in his book The Varieties of Religious Experience, tries to categorize religious experiences according to their value. Some seem to be very healthy and do people a lot of good, but some are clearly pathological, and he argues that the most extreme manifestations of asceticism are an example of the pathological variety of experience. James quotes the Spanish mystic St. John of the Cross, who says, "If anything agreeable offers itself to your senses, yet does not at the same time tend purely to the honor and glory of God, renounce it and separate yourself from it for the love of Christ, who all his life long had no other taste or wish than to do the will of his Father, whom he called his meat and nourishment. Let your soul therefore turn always, not to what is most easy, but to what is hardest, not to what tastes best, but to what is most distasteful, not to what most pleases, but to what disgusts, not to matter of consolation, but to matter for desolation rather, not to rest, but to labor, not to desire the more, but the less, not to aspire to what is highest and most precious, but to what is lowest and most contemptible, not to will anything, but to will nothing, not to seek the best in everything, but to seek the worst, so that you may enter for the love of Christ into a complete destitution, a perfect poverty of spirit, and an absolute renunciation of everything in this world." The most illustrative example James cites of someone who actually lived this way is a 14th century German mystic named Henry Suso. Here are some excerpts from Suso's autobiography written in the third person. Fair warning, this gets a bit gross. He was in his youth of a temperament full of fire and life, and when this began to make itself felt, it was very grievous to him, and he sought by many devices how he might bring his body into subjection. He wore for a long time a hair shirt and an iron chain until the blood ran from him, so that he was obliged to leave them off. He secretly caused an undergarment to be made for him, and in the undergarment he had strips of leather fixed, into which 150 brass nails pointed and filed sharp were driven, and the points of the nails were always turned towards the flesh. He had this garment made very tight, and so arranged as to go round him and fasten in the front in order that it might fit the closer to his body, and the pointed nails might be driven into his flesh, and it was high enough to reach upwards to his navel. As he slept, he would be tormented also by noxious insects, cry aloud and give way to fretfulness, and twist round and round in agony as a worm does when run through with a pointed needle. The nights in winter were never so long, nor the summer so hot, as to make him leave off this exercise. On the contrary, he devised something farther, 2 leathern loops into which he put his hands and fastened one on each side his throat, and made the fastening so secure that even if his cell had been on fire about him, he could not have helped himself. In winter he suffered very much from the frost. If he stretched out his feet, they lay bare on the floor and froze. If he gathered them up, the blood became all on fire in his legs, and this was great pain. His feet were full of sores, his legs dropsical, his knees bloody and seared, his loins covered with scars from the horsehair, his body wasted, his mouth parched with intense thirst, and his hands tremulous from weakness. Amid these torments he spent his nights and days, and he endured them all out of the greatness of the love which he bore in his heart to the divine and eternal wisdom, our Lord Jesus Christ, whose agonizing sufferings he sought to imitate. James says that Suso's case is distinctly pathological, but he does not seem to have the alleviation which some ascetics have enjoyed, of an alteration of sensibility capable of actually turning torment into a perverse kind of pleasure. Suso was not a masochist. He didn't seem to get off on the pain he felt. What if every Christian did this? If every Christian aspired to what is lowest and most contemptible, Christianity would quickly go extinct as a religion. Few would convert to it, and those who adhered to these prescriptions wouldn't survive very long. This phenomenon is far from exclusive to Christian mystics. There are plenty of Hindu ascetics just as fanatical, and Ayatollah Khomeini once famously said that Allah did not create man so that he could have fun. The aim of creation was for mankind to be put to the test through hardship and prayer. An Islamic regime must be serious in every field. There are no jokes in Islam. There is no humor in Islam. There is no fun in Islam. There can be no fun and joy in whatever is serious. Islam does not allow swimming in the sea and is opposed to radio and television serials. Fortunately, most religious folks don't take the prescriptions of St. John of the Cross or Ayatollah Khomeini seriously.